the Chicago Blackhawks. And we stay with misery here because this is a club that has had 3 consecutive last place finishes in the Central, 61 points last year. Jeff Blashill takes over for Andrew Sorensen behind the bench. But the reality, team hasn't been above 6th place in the last 8 years. I don't think it's going to get much better this year. The notable adds for this club, Andrei Burakovsky was acquired in a trade from Seattle for Joe Veleno, who eventually wound up signing with the Montreal Canadiens. Burakovsky is slotted in as a first-line player with Connor Bedard and Ryan Donato. They also pick up Sam Lafferty in a trade with Buffalo. He's projected to be on the 4th line. And Dominic Toninato signed as a UFA from the Winnipeg Jets. They do hold on to, pending UFA, Ryan Donato, who had a career year, did 30 goals, 4 years, average of $4 million a year. And they hold on to defenseman and RFA Louis Crevier, goalie Arvid Soderblom. And here's the shocker, Neil. And this is a signing that will be effective in the 26-27 season. And now you got to wonder, what is GM Kyle Davidson thinking here? Because he signed center Frank Nazar, who slots in number 2 behind Bedard. He's played 56 games in the NHL. Signs it for a 7-year, $6.6 million extension after his entry-level contract expires at the end of this season. So if you're talking about salaries gone wild and stuff that doesn't make sense, you sent me this text when this deal was signed. My jaw dropped.
I don't know whose wouldn't drop when you see that. Like, you barely heard of Frank Nazar. And he gets that kind of deal. And here's the question to you, unless I am completely out of it, which could be, after your entry-level deal expires, you're not unrestricted.
Right.
Correct?
You're an RFA. You're not qualified.
So there was no reason to have to give this guy this kind of a contract.
And they certainly had another promising center in their organization that they didn't qualify, and that was Philip Kurashev, who went off to San Jose. But you talk stupid money. This is right there.
I don't understand what's going on. It's another one of these things. I just don't get it.
A couple of other players that drop from the Chicago roster, both retirements. Alec Martinez retired on April 12th. He scored the 2 biggest goals, perhaps in Kings history. He had the overtime winner in Game 7 against Chicago in the Western Conference Final, and then the double OT winner to win the Cup for the Kings against the Rangers. And Pat Maroon announced his retirement effective April the 12th. He won the Stanley Cup in St. Louis in 2019 and then turned around and did back-to-back with Tampa in 20 and 21. So there goes some championship pedigree and some character out of that locker room as well.
Yeah, Pat Maroon is a very well-liked player, whatever locker room he's in. And then I want to comment on Andrei Burakovsky. Seattle trades him and gets back Joe Veleno. And then Joe Veleno signs elsewhere. And so that's how much Seattle thought of Burakovsky, that they'd trade him for nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't see this lineup in Chicago, and I like Nick Foligno as a captain. I think he's a character guy.
Yeah.
I don't see this lineup as going to be in the mix with these teams that we've just reviewed. I don't see them fighting with Utah and St. Louis. I don't see there's any way. I think they're going to be back to fighting with San Jose for a lottery pick.
Davidson has Connor Bedard's contract, his entry-level deal, expiring at the end of this year. Bedard has come under a little bit of heat. Look, you're expecting a smallish player to turn the franchise around when he was selected number 1 overall in 2023. But the truth of the matter is, I think if people had a choice between Bedard and the 2024 number 1 overall pick that went to San Jose, Macklin Celebrini, they're choosing the latter.
I think you're right in some regards. Bedard is not in an easy situation in Chicago for a guy his size. He needs a Nate McKinnon type guy with him, a Messier type, like a big, strong centerman that comes out after him. Donato had a real good year last year. They re-signed him. He offensively played real well, but Bedard doesn't have the kind of players around him that I think he needs to excel in the NHL.
I think your points are great there. And you look at Bedard's numbers, and in terms of production, awful. First year, 22 goals, 39 assists. And in his second year, 23 goals and 44 assists. But his rookie season, he's a minus 44. It's tied for second worst in the NHL. Last year, minus 36. Tied for fifth worst, along with Steven Stamkos, who we just mentioned. So in 2 years, he's a minus 80. There has been a lot of criticism about his play away from the puck. And again, we've said there's a lot of pressure that's put on him. And you just mentioned the supporting cast that he has. Timo Teravainen, Tyler Bertuzzi, Nick Foligno, Ilya Mikheyev. And you look at these players that once you get past Donato, those 4 players that I just mentioned are probably bottom 6 forwards on virtually every other team in the NHL.
Yeah, Bedard doesn't have people to play with. And when you look at it, you think perhaps what the Blackhawk organization thinks is that Nazar, the next best thing they've got to Bedard, and they need them both to be able to compete. But I don't see yet a competitive lineup here. And we haven't even gone into some of the stuff that's in this. I don't see it. And for Bedard himself, there's no Mike Bossy there to give the puck to. And yes, you're right. Bedard's defensive game, if you've seen him play, it's awful.
Yeah.
His defensive game. Anyway, let's go through what the rest of the lineup looks like.
But there's not much there in terms of their back line. It's a lot of no-name players. They do have 3 prospects in Artyom Levshunov, Sam Rinzel, and Kevin Korchinski. And in goal, it looks like it's going to be a split between Spencer Knight and Arvid Soderblom. So to that end, Neil, when you've got a club that personnel-wise is easily in the bottom 10th of the league, bottom 10% in terms of what your personnel is. If you're Jeff Blashill, you're starting out, it's your first year behind the bench, did have a number of years with the Detroit Red Wings, but starting off with the Chicago Blackhawks. Do you almost have to approach this like Marco Sturm in Boston? And granted, Sturm has David Pastrnak, but there's not a lot behind him either. Do you have to get into a defense-first mindset just in order to compete?
You're going to have to put together a system that locks it down all the time. And to be able to compete, the way that coaches do get teams to overachieve, you can't go offense with this lineup. So that leads you to Bedard again.
Yeah.
Can Bedard play in a system that's defense first? I doubt it. I should call my good friend John Paddock, who coached him in Regina, and ask him if he thinks he can. But, Jeff Blashill has not head coached playoff hockey. And I can tell you he's going to be waiting a little while longer to coach playoff hockey in Chicago.
But what is the first thing that you do with this group?
You institute a system that is as you said, defense first, and you lock the other team down. And when you get your opportunities to go back on the offense on a mistake by the other team, that's when you take your opportunity.
Blackhawks were tiresome to get through, as were the Nashville Preds.
They are. It's hard because you really, what are you going to say? And I say this to everybody out there listening. What are you going to say about this team? It clearly is a rebuilding team trying to rebuild, and they're not out of the starting blocks yet.
And they haven't been out of the starting blocks in a while.
No.
That's the hard part. If you're a Blackhawks fan, you got Bedard 2 years ago, and you thought you were going to see an upswing, and the reality is 61 points last year. I don't see much of an improvement over that, and they may even regress.
They might. And I don't, their defense has really, the only real highly recognizable name is Connor Murphy, who's been around for a long time and is near the end of his career. Alex Vlasic is pretty good, but the other names, I don't even hardly know them. And the young guy, Levshunov, is up and coming, but it's hard to play defense in the National Hockey League as a young guy. So stay tuned, Blackhawk fans.